Welcome, everybody. Today we're here with Josh Madden, and we're going to be talking about some of the conflicts going on around the world and how it might have changed things going forward. So, Josh, what's going on here?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Brian, for the introduction. So depending on how you measure, there's about a dozen of these conflicts going on around the world right now, and any one of which could have a different impact on the different workings between geopolitics, but also with regards to investment. So it's something that we like to keep our thumb on the pulse on. What's changed a lot lately is what we see in Syria from recent developments. Um, Most people are probably aware that there's been a pretty stagnant civil war that's been going on for years now. It's had its active phases. It's mostly been in more of a dormant kind of phase with most of the different groups just staying in their respective areas. That's changed very quickly over the past, well, it's already changed already, but over the course of about a couple of weeks, starting at the late November, we've seen a lot of movement in Syria that really much faster than anybody could have anticipated resulted in a regime change in the capital of Damascus. So that has far-reaching implications, not just for the Middle East, but also for strategies regarding, well, we know that Russia has a lot of bases. They have two in particular naval bases there. They have a military presence. So does the US. Turkey as well. They all have their different interests there and all their different groups. So it's a bit of a complex web. But right now, what we know for certain is that the Turkish-backed rebels, known as HTS or Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, have taken power in Damascus. Not to say it's to the exclusion of any other groups. There are a few other ones out there, like the Turks also back the Syrian National Army. The SDF, Syrian Democratic Forces, are backed by the US. And well, Russia still has their bases in there too. So there's a lot of different factors in play, but it's a very mercurial situation. It is changing quickly, but what we do see so far is the government, the new government, or whatever form it may take, the transitional one, has signaled that they would be looking to implement a free market economy. So there's a lot of things that can be said at this point, and a lot of things we don't know yet, but this is where we've been up to now.
A free market economy, that sounds very advantageous for, well, a more democratic world potentially going forward. Are there any other things that we can expect going forward?
Well, the first thing is, so like I said, these are positive things to say, but well, there's a lot of things being said right now, and so there's a lot of things that we still don't know. One thing that we do know is something that's already starting to happen is just because there's regime change in Damascus does not mean the fighting is over. Now, anybody familiar with the SDF or the northeast parts of Syria know that these are, primarily a lot of different groups in the Kurdish regions of Syria. Now, there would take a huge thesis to kind of get into all the inner workings of this, but the point is we expect the fighting in these areas to continue between these particular groups, between the SDF and the potentially new transitional government for the time being. So it's not to say the conflict's over, just that it's changed significantly. Now, how can that impact things beyond Turkey? Well, past the obvious geopolitical factors and the different roles I mentioned. Well, uh, it could be the case that this impacts things relating to infrastructure or military spending of these different groups and in these different sectors, since, well, again, the conflict isn't quite over. And it could also mean that once we do reach a point where there's more stability in the region, there might be more basis for infrastructure and other investment attracted to, well, we might see a Syria that's a little more international in their outlook. So those are a couple of places where it could change. Another potential place, I suppose, could be in crude in terms of oil, but then it's a bit hard to say right now because you could argue that, well, the Syrian civil war has been going on since 2011, so its effects could largely be priced in by now. That said, just the other day, the transitional government did happen to see some oil fields in Deir ez-Zor. It's about 5,000 barrels a day from that. Probably not a huge drop on in the bucket, as it were, but just not to know that there are some different factors there that could affect the markets, just not at the moment, since yes, we have a new government in Syria, but well, it's not exactly news that there's conflict there at the end of the day.
So, in summation, essentially, we have good news from a geopolitical basis, probably not a huge shift in our portfolios or the global economy, but some potential advantages in a pro vantage point.
Exactly. I would say it's nothing like a hugely significant change to the investment portfolios, but it does mean that, well, we might see some significant shifts on the geopolitical front, which, well, that plays out on the order of months or years, not so much days or weeks, but it's something to be aware of because, well, there could be opportunities later on. But for now, it's an interesting development. We're just staying on top of it to see if there's any other big moving parts coming up. But it's been a very interesting and very eventful couple of weeks there.
Josh, thank you for the summation of this entire thing. If somebody wanted to get a hold of you, how do they get a hold of you to ask you any questions?
You can always reach me by email at joshua@dunhillfinancial.com. So I am part of the Geopolitics Desk here. I'm always happy to lend my insights on what's going on in the world and how it relates to the world of financial planning, investment strategies, etc. So feel free to get in touch and always happy to have a conversation. Thank you for your time also, Brian.
Thanks so much, Josh. Have a wonderful day, everybody, and we'll see you soon.